process?
Well, Addison, I've signed her up. Pretty much, it's been a few years every summer to the High Harbor camp, and it's typically been a week or so long, and now she's in the leadership program. But what I look for is just activities that she's enjoys. So like she enjoyed water sports, so that was something that I focused on, activities that she enjoys, and I thought would be something that she would enjoy for the summer. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that idea of camp that you continue to go back to and then develop into the leadership style. I think we haven't traditionally done something like that. We've done, Layton's my daughter, and we've done some outside the box stuff. So last year she went to an intensive Spanish program in Costa Rica for 3 weeks. And so there wasn't that opportunity for leadership in that, but again, experiencing new things, and she'll go to Peru this year for 3 weeks and kind of do a similar program, do a little sightseeing, but really indulge into the culture and immerse yourself in that. But I do like the leadership idea of it.
For us, we've done everything from outdoor-oriented camps to the brain camp down at Emory, so very educational focused, to mission trips, and each one has been a very different experience. Each one aligns to what my sons were looking for, but it was, I'd say there were pros and cons of each type that they've had an opportunity to attend. In some cases, we looked for a bunch of different activities, and some we just wanted to get deep in certain topics.
Just to fill you in, we were asking if you have ever been to or have sent your kids to a summer program.
And feel free to talk to each other about it too, because we want to see how your ideas bounce off each other and
or align.
Change.
Our two youngest ride horses, and so Madison's across the hall and Collins is in 8th grade, and so for the last few years, most of their summer camp experience has been around skill development and riding horses. So we spend probably 6 to 7 weeks a summer in different locations, like in Florida or in Aiken, South Carolina, and they're immersed in these equestrian camps to enhance skill and learn more about the equine business and things like that. So a little more sports related, if that makes sense. But the skills are around time management. You're up at 5 in the morning. You don't go to bed till 10 o'clock at night because horses need to be cared for all day long. It's like having really expensive children, more expensive children. So yeah, but it's a lot of sweat equity.
Well, and I know also, just thinking of over the years, we would start with a lot of sports-focused camps like, soccer, cheer, lacrosse. Whenever there's things that maybe where they were at the time they couldn't do it at the school, we would look at like how do we do it maybe in the summertime, or just being able to like increase your skills, or just again continue doing something that you enjoy. I know my oldest daughter. We did art-focused things too, because that was something that she was interested in. Again, it's just been mostly focused on their interest at the time and what they would enjoy.
I think the thing as they the kids have grown up or older is we try to give back to the community as well. So Retta's about to graduate here and head to Georgia Tech. In the last 2 summers, she's done an internship with the pantry right down the street. And I think it's a great way to give back to the community, but also a great way for her to realize where she is and get some of that, next level of give back. Really focusing on where she is with community and literally locally. So I think that's another. Yeah.
And when you guys talk about those skill building camps and mission trips, what do you guys hope that your kids bring back from that?
I think at the beginning, the first couple we did, it was really around skills that you might be getting for someone who's a little more of an expert in the space than you can get at home or in your backyard. So tapping into that expertise, regionally or nationally, and having these experts come in and teach them things they've never experienced before. But as we've gone through several of these, we want them to be kind of like where you guys are, building those leadership skills. Now that you've done it once, 2 times, 3 times, how are you progressing, and what role are you playing in that camp? So can you take an active leadership role either with your own team or with the camp overall? Because I think once you've done it a few times, you really want to kind of push yourself to make each experience slightly different and better. And so we really push them to take on more of a leadership role as they've gone through these things a couple of times. So yeah. So.
I would concur with what you said. I mean, really, just one, enjoyment in getting out, what they want out of the experience, but also seeing that growth from each year and the potential of where you could be, based on really, taking the steps and taking initiative to take on certain leadership roles, and hoping that that comfort level will then lead back into other aspects of their lives. But yeah, just
What were some times that you saw your kid go to camp and come back with like newly developed, like that big takeaway that you're kind of talking about, or that evolution kind of?
As I've watched them progress over the years, in the early stages, it's like you're looking for, did you actually learn something? Can you repeat it? Are you starting to activate on it? And in the early stages, as a parent, you're sort of reminding them and pushing them to sort of tap into the things they've learned. But as the years have gone by, what I'm looking for, and I think what my wife looks for, is it just becoming part of their disposition? Are they just self-motivated? Do we have to push them? Are they just waking up and taking on the things that we think they should know by now and being accountable for that? And so I'm looking for that sort of shift in behavior, or that mindset, because to me, in the leadership role, I want them to just start emulating that and not have to be told. So just becoming part of their daily routine.
I don't think there was an aha moment, like, it's like when you see a kid from the end of the semester, and then you see him in the fall semester, like, well, that kid just grew up. I don't think it's anything like that. I don't think it's earth shattering. I think they're baby steps, those fundamental steps that you go, wow, she's really starting to lead. She's just taking this on her own, and she starts to do things, or he starts to do things on their own, and those are the big steps. You're like, okay, wow, really getting it.
Are there any key instances where there was a topic or subject that hit your student and then they kind of made that switch to the leadership role kind of by themselves? Are there any moments where you're like, oh, that really resonated with them, or helped a topic resonate with them, help them become a better leader?
I think what I've seen over the years, especially the last year or two, with Madison, is the emotional aspect of being a leader. There's the functional skill development. You see a behavior shift, but like emotionally, when things aren't going well, or they're not going the way you've expected or planned, how is she mentally and emotionally handling the pivot, right? Either individually, or how is she emotionally helping the team work through something that she's already been through and she knows what to expect? Is she keeping her emotions in check? Right? If someone else is having a bad day or reacting, how is she helping that person? Right? She's already been through it, kind of stuff. So I think she's starting to progress past the functional stuff and demonstrating some of those emotional and intellectual behaviors that I didn't see, a few years ago. And it's to your point, John, right? I think it's those baby step things. It's the little moments you start to pick up on. It's not like, aha, she just wakes up today and she's a different person. But we're seeing her focus on different things, so it's just nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of these real world discussions where we're seeing on the news or on campus, and having those open discussions from a family and senior, sophomore, sixth grader. I mean, I think all that sorts of we learn from each other, and I think Greta deals with Layton differently than perhaps she would have 2 years ago, and I think that's all evolution of maturity in leadership and experiences, and whether they happened in camp or happened through the semester.
And I'd say in our case, we were taking a different approach to it, which is we wanted to put the boys into situations where they didn't know other people And so we would get them immersive experiences where they needed to get uncomfortable and get an opportunity to interact and recognize that relationship building and friend building can happen in and above their normal communities that they spend time with. And so that I wouldn't say it was so focused on next level skill building or leadership. It was really just knowing that you can go from one group to the next and be comfortable in situations that are just different.
Did they know you were doing that? Was that an open discussion, or was that like you're master puppeteering behind the scenes?
My wife and I both moved a lot when we were younger, and I can't say that I enjoyed that experience, but I realized looking back that I got an opportunity to get very comfortable every couple of years in a new environment with new people, and we in fact moved them to Mount Vernon when they came into high school and middle school for that express purpose. And so we had that as a discussion within the family. But when we would look for these types of summer activities, we didn't necessarily call it out. But I think they understood that being away from home or being in a dorm or just being involved in content that wasn't core to their background was something that we value. They realized that.
That's a perfect segue into dorm and colleges. I think the number one thing is independence. And if mom and dad aren't going to solve everything while you're not here, you need to figure some of this out yourself and get a taste of that, because go to college, that's what it's going to be like.
And do you look for that with camps, is like emulating that kind of college experience and getting a taste for, okay, I've spent my whole life with my family and having that support system now, how do I switch over? Is that like,
we definitely did.
Yeah.
We sent our oldest to Wake Forest for the summer finance camp, and it was just to get him comfortable being in that next level environment, taking on the responsibility, not having us remind him of due dates or expectations, but instead be out there to perform on his own before he actually got there.
And what was Wake Forest like?
He loved it. He's a senior in college now in that topic area, so he definitely got a chance to see different calibration of students and peers from around the country that I think was kind of eye-opening to him. You know, he came from a similar environment to this, where there was consistency in the educational approach, and he kind of knew where he stood with his peers. But then when you see folks come in from around the world into these environments, it opened his aperture quite a bit. I get it. You know, I might be at a certain point within my program in my school, but I see different peers of different calibers coming in. I recognize that if this is what I want to do, I need to be serious about it.
What do you think that he was able to bring back home from that experience?
Definitely a sense of independence. He's a very structured person to begin with, so I didn't have any concerns on that. But he definitely had an inspiration after the summer up there of being accountable to himself and really being. He also, and I guess he knew it going in, but he recognized the importance of networking and continuing relationships. You know, obviously the phone and everything makes that aspect much easier, but it is still incredibly important to maintain that outreach. And so he did a great job of staying in touch with classmates and has visited around the world. And some of those friends from 5 years ago.
And so for some of you, I know that you guys have sent some of your kids to a academic program over the summer, and I was wondering if any of you guys who haven't sent your kids to one, if you would consider doing that.
Yeah, if it's something that was of interest, absolutely.
I like what Chris said. I never processed the strategy of taking your child and saying, I'm going to send you to something that might be in your interest space, but I'm going to pivot you from the world that you know into a place that's uncomfortable, so that you can learn to meet new people. I grew up as a military kid, so I moved every 2 or 3 years, and so I had to meet new friends I didn't grow up in the same school system. I think I was in like 8 school systems my whole life, and so it's a blessing and a curse. I didn't grow up like my children have grown up, where they're in the same little sort of protected cocoon, the same school system in the same neighborhood for 15 years. And so, like, I think I would be interested in an academic thing, but I think I like the idea of sending them someplace where they actually don't know anybody that's going, right?
And we actually,
Because I worry about that.
Yeah.
They are going to leave home in 3 years or 4 years, and it's like you're going to be plopped into a new institution, and you may know a friend that goes there. You may not be in the same college. I don't know, but like you're going to have to pedal pretty quickly to find your people. You know.
and we really had to assess those based off of looking for an experience that none of them would know anyone.
Yeah. But I think
And I think
But I would
it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's you're getting, whether it's a class ahead or you're doubling down on physics for the following year, whatever it is. And I don't know that we were ever thinking about it, but it turned out that most of where we were sending kids, our kids were, they weren't going with a pack, that's for sure. So, and I like the way you were doing it. I just never thought about it, but I think if you can get ahead academically and you're getting some of these other skills, which all gel together, that independence, that leadership, I think you can get all of that in one fun swoop. And if your child or the children are getting ahead, then it's a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say there's a lot competing in summertime, and we haven't done this. I mean, maybe it's been 5 or 6 years since she's done anything like this, but she's like year-round volleyball, so we're in tournaments and going. But I'm just happy she has a job. And I'm serious, because she's earning her own money. She's learning what it's like to be in the workforce. She's not working for a boss, learning customer service, all these skills that, hey, if she didn't have that, I think it would be a loss. So.
Mm-hmm. And regarding time, we actually wanted you guys to write down how long you think would be like the perfect time for like any academic program on a sticky note, and then kind of share out with each other and explain why you wrote that answer.
How much time? I have to say that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for how many days you think would be good for like an academic type program. Mm-hmm.
You want to post it so you can keep it, or do you want to keep it?
You can do whichever.
Yeah, hang on to it for now and then.
I'm struggling between 3 to 4 weeks, but I'm getting to your point. I think there is, whether it's a job or other activities, and just some freedom of summer, and a refresh of the brain, and that, 3 to 4 weeks, something like that is what I would think.
For me, I'd landed on 2 weeks again, just because summer is so short, and I feel like there's time for academics, but there's also family and things that we do and traditions, and to me, that's just as important. And so, to me, if I was going to commit something, I would see 2 weeks would be my sweet spot.
I'm in the 2 to 4 week camp. Similar themes, you guys work so hard these days. You work 10 times harder than I think we worked when we were in school, high school. It is mind-boggling, the workload, the things that you guys take on, plus ones. And so I do appreciate a few weeks, a handful of weeks over the summer, just to take a pause. I like what John said on the job thing. We have 2 older kids here at Georgia who are juniors, and they are straight A's. They're involved in everything. They never take a minute off. They've been pedaling since they were 5 years old. And I harp on them, it's okay to have 2 weeks or 3 weeks where you're doing nothing. But they can't process that. But we're going to fall behind, but my friends are doing this, and so-and-so's doing that, and if I don't do this, like, this is your moment, because when you graduate from college, the best case you get 4 weeks, 5 weeks of vacation and some paid time off, and that's it. And I think it'd be fine, but like I wouldn't want it to be the entire summer. Yeah, some downtime is helpful at this age, I think.
I'm on the low side. I said 1 week, just for some of these reasons.
Yeah.
As
So I was gonna say, for me, I think it's dependent on age range, and whether it feels like it's being done to them or for them. And we've had experiences of both, but I like as they get a little bit older to go into that 3 to 4 weeks, because I think it takes a while to develop that network and that comfort. But we've done 1 week, STEM camps at Emory and the brain health camp at Georgia Tech and stuff like that. And it was all programs that were interesting to the boys, and they loved it.
Could you expand more on that, like done for them versus done to them?
Yeah, I have 3 sons. They all have different personalities, and there's a comfort with getting out and doing new things. You guys know Bo, like that was just innately who he is, and so it doesn't matter who, what, where, when. He's interested and ready to go. Jackson, my oldest, is a little more resistant to change, and in that case, I liked the longer because he wasn't necessarily looking forward to it, but we knew that he would benefit from it. But it would take him a while to get into the flow of not just the learning, but everything about the program. And so I just think it is dependent on what we as parents are trying to get out of it, but also where that individual person is and kind of what their growth needs are.
So you just gave me a really good insight. You're doing a good job of capturing it. Chris, I wanted to follow up a little bit about that, and you mentioned it too. Do you think there's a benefit to like going to a college campus, staying in a dorm, that thing, and I know when you described Bo, it just made me miss them all the more, but that's, and they are so different. But having that feeling of being scared going in, do you think if it was only 1 week, there would have still been some of that? Like going into the second week, it's like, that was amazing.
Yeah, I definitely think just the newness and
out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
I think
And the ability to feel that he's maturing and gaining that level of access.
I think you can hide for a week.
Yeah, that's right.
You could still stay in that comfort zone of hiding in the corner. After a week or two, you can't hide in the corner anymore. And so I think that gets you out of whatever comfort zone. I could hide in the corner for a week. It was a week. The next week I probably need to start interacting.
I like that. Like, just by hiding, do you mean like just avoiding the?
It's like I don't have to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Like I can do my work here. And,
It's Wednesday, we're halfway through.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
I made it.
Well, let's hope the way that it's structured, they're purposely looking to pull people out of that.
There are the ones that
if
aren't.
they're the good ones.
Yeah,
So would
right.
be mindful of that for sure.
Okay.
A lot of you mentioned, that 2 to 3, even 2 to 4 week range. With more time, typically comes a higher price for every camp. Typically, not in all cases. How do you justify price of what they're going to learn?
Anything cheaper than horses. You can charge me whatever you want.
Very true. I grew up with horses.
And all kidding aside, I do think I would expect that for a decent sized camp for a handful of weeks, you're $2,000 to $3,000 for a camp probably by the time you pay room and board, and meals, and then the tutoring and the experts. So I'm not sure the 5 to 10 grabs my attention too much, but 3,000 is probably what I would expect for a series of weeks.
And I guess I would say is if it's your group that's trying to sell me on a camp, sell me. I mean, if you can sell me on the camp at X dollars, I'm all in. If you just want to go to a football camp and it's you want to go because all your buddies are going and it's at Walton, maybe that's something we'll talk about and how expensive it is. But if it's going to better you and you're invested, then I'll invest with you.
So this is their first time doing that. So when I jump in, it's just a little coaching. It gave you a perfect opportunity for follow up. when he said it depends, you tell me, what are you gonna get? So your follow-up would be,
What
what
are
would
you
you wanna
looking?
know going in? What would convince you like that this is worth the money asked?
Yeah, I think it would be, what is the cost? What are you going to get out of it? And what are you going to do with what you learned or this camp is about? And what are you going to do with that moving forward? Yeah.
When you think about what Mount Vernon costs, right? I mean, on a per day, per week basis for tuition, so you have to make the price point, the value commensurate with that, right?
Mhm.
So it's something parents are going to do the math and go, well, I could just not do this and do this instead. So benchmark it against other things that are comparable to find a number that's reasonable, right? So.
Mhm.
I think it also gets into, I think someone said, for them or to them, they really have, if it's expensive, they really have to want to do it. I'm not going to make them I'm not going to put the money out for something they don't want to do.
We'd love for you guys to write down what you think a Sunday to Sunday leadership camp would
Sunday to
cost,
Friday.
or Sunday to Friday.
On the little favorite.
I'm sorry,
What do we do?
question again
This
is what?
is a boarded camp.
We would love for you to write down how much you would think a Sunday to Friday leadership camp would cost.
Like even
out
a
of college.
range.
This is boarding, right?
Sunday to Friday. Yeah.
Including the things that you guys kind of mentioned, like having that college experience, being in dorms, all that stuff.
Room and board, yeah.
Holiday Inn Express over here.
Well, that's why we have you write it, because we do that with the kids too. When I don't want the kids to influence each other, I have them write it first, and then talk to each other, and then talk to me, because if you hear someone say something, it's gonna influence everything else you put. So that's why they intentionally have you write it, so then we can get a wider range.
I said 2,500.
Cheating with my
Mhm.
2,500.
What'd you say, Chris?
2,500.
Yeah,
That's what I said.
I said
Mhm.
1,500 to 2K.
Mhm.
Can y'all kind of like elaborate on why you guys wrote those prices, or like try to find an agreement on like what's important from that camp that made you want to write down that price?
I was at the higher scale, and I was just thinking, okay, room and board, food, Costa Rica, so some of them might have been international, maybe so plane tickets in there. But yeah, I mean, I think when you're staying somewhere, and if it's not a barracks, there's gonna be some price to it.
What'd you put, John?
3,200.
Yeah, we're right in the
I
ballpark.
figured inflation. Everything's more expensive now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And can you repeat your question again, your last question?
Why you guys directed towards writing the price that you wrote for the camp?
I think when you think about room and board, what's a hotel cost versus, you put 4 or 5 kids in a unit or a barracks or whatever. It could be very minimalistic or it could be all in. I mean, it's not kind of Disney cruise versus barracks, room, board, food, and then education and plus ones and all the activities. So it's several $100 a day easily, I'm sure. Right? Yeah. So, but those things.
500 a day.
But it all adds up quick.
Yeah.
Does that feel expensive to you guys? Is that not enough?
I mean,
So what I'm hearing you guys say is that if you had the price, you'd want to know what you were getting for that, like how it broke down, and an understanding of that money.
sure.
If they kind of got to step up and meet with lots of CEOs, leaders of big companies, be able to shoot commercials, kind of go outside of the box and do your non-typical, I guess, leadership camp, almost bring it up to a whole nother level. Would you expect price to go up as well?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah.
What do you think that price would look like?
For me, I'm going to be the contrarian, and I would say no, because my expectation is that is a leadership camp. That, I mean, it depends. some of those CEOs might be, but at the end of the day, leadership lessons are learned through experience, and having people come in and represent what their individual journey is or was is super important to that level of learning. So I would have expected within a leadership camp that would be a component of that experience to begin with.
Well, and your number, like what you just said, mine would bump up to what you had, closer to what you had based on what you're saying with the more, if it was more, bringing in these different people, because then I'm thinking, okay, the cost of that and bringing in that experience and
Yeah.
and interacting with people that are in these fields would bump up that cost a little bit. So yeah, definitely.
And
It may also depend how big the camp is. If it's 100 campers versus 50.
yeah. And do you think that like
Hold on 1 second. That's a great follow up.
Yeah.
Like, what's the better value to you as far as like making the decision on that? The smaller group or the bigger group?
Well, I think economically the bigger group is going to be more feasible. The smaller group would give you that better personal interaction.
Right. Sorry, John.
That's exactly what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
And
Should have been
but moving on towards, we're talking about leadership, and that's kind of what we get from when you sign your kid up for ID. So if the camp was to focus more on the idea of like entrepreneurship, where you're getting those skills and that, like getting a look into the eyes of an entrepreneur or how that works, how would that change the price versus leadership, or is it similar?
I mean, I think I think it is a different focus, but the same type of activities. I mean, you either have a CEO who wasn't necessarily an entrepreneur come in and speak about leadership, or you have an entrepreneur that's come in and talk about the roller coaster of business and wearing every hat there is, and being attuned to all aspects of the business. It's just it's just how you use each hour.
And I think, charge this group is you've got a lot of family and friends that fill those roles from this MB community. So I think you could have a different, mentor speak monthly, and you'd have your calendar filled up.
What if they had an experience where they got to launch their own business over the span and take ownership of something they were passionate about? Would that be compelling?
Absolutely. And I think it's happening so quicker and so much easier today than it ever has, and test it out while you can is least impact to you.
Yeah, Chris, I think of Bo a lot whenever I think of these entrepreneurs, because he's written on everything he ever wrote for me. I will be some kind of entrepreneur at some point.
Yeah.
And that's a through line in my 4 years with him.
Yeah.
I have no doubt he will.
He's doing the Create X in Berlin this summer.
Oh, that's awesome. Love it.
And how do you think a camp about entrepreneurship and learning those skills would need to separate itself from ID? Where
I think one of the things that hit my mind, as Chris was giving examples, and John as well, is like in the spirit of entrepreneurship, I think something to keep in mind is the goal that you're after a product or is it a service? So I think you could structure those things very differently, and I think those who are involved are very different. I mean, there are some similarities and overlaps in terms of just starting a business in general and wearing those multiple hats. I'm a marketing person, I'm an advertising person, I'm customer service, but like products and services are very different. And so I think that could also influence what a program looks like, even in ID, right? They're very two different things.
Yeah, and just again, exposure to all aspects. There's going to be things that you love about what you're doing, and then the grunt backward work where when you're doing something on your own for the first time, you're wearing all the hats, and it's not all going to be the great, things that you love to do, but then it's like if you're owning a business and you're going to have employees, what does that look like? And all there's so much that goes into running a business other than the face of it, whatever you're providing. So that type of exposure, I think, would be like very invaluable because that's not a lot of people are exposed to
And I
that.
think that's the thing is we all think it's just that shiny product or that beautiful service.
Yeah.
The stuff behind it
Yeah.
is enormous. And that's the stuff that you don't go to bed at night, and that's what keeps you up at night, and that's what gives you the stress.
If you just watch Shark, we would love Shark Tank in our house. We've watched it since day one almost. And if you notice on Shark Tank, you can have a great product person that can't talk themselves out of a box. They always have a partner. And that partner is usually a yin to their yang, right? And as a product person, you get to some point where you need a face for the product. Typically what makes a great product person, they really struggle on the interpersonal ticket to market side. It's just not their thing, right? So you get into the nuances of a program, the skills you need to learn are very different. It's incredibly different.
I'm really glad to hear you guys say that. So many people mistake ID as having an entrepreneurship program within it, but it's your collaborative problem solving. People come to us all the time with, oh, I have this entrepreneurship thing, and I'm like, well, that's kind of more the inquiry pathway. We are like, of course, pairing with corporate or nonprofits and helping them solve problems. And so I love hearing that you kind of got that distinction. That's two different skill sets.
I mean, I love ID because I think it is the basis for if you want to go down a path of entrepreneurship, if you have that inquisitive mindset, if you have those leadership qualities, you have the ability to communicate, you have the whole package, then regardless of what path you want to take, that's the foundation.
And I think entrepreneurs would love the aspect of the ID program where it is collaborative and we bring different ideas to the table. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you're usually a little baby step over here by yourself, right? So the more collaboration you could have, the better. So
this is when you can talk about that this is what our client is doing. Like, so you can actually tell them what you're working on now because you got them where you want. You drove, got all the answers. So now tell them about our client and what they're doing and what we're talking about.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to ask one other question that you guys might have been asking, but what kind of artifacts would make this more compelling? If they went for a week and they come home with, would it be a letter of rec from a business partner or what kind of thing would you go, whoa, I think we got to do this. Like, this sounds really compelling.
Yeah, I think that, going back to John's example, he's passionate about his your daughter working. That is a life skill.
Yes, that's right.
That is a life skill, and I do believe the sooner you can get that, the better, because it is the real world is the real world. So I appreciate that. I do think like if you did a summer camp, what does that now open? What door does that now open up for you and that network of leaders that you engaged, or whether it was in academia, the university? Is there a pathway that's now more viable for you as part of that? Whether it's a next summer internship, you would come back and participate in a different role, or hey, when you're a freshman, it opens you up to be an internship your freshman year in college. But I think that is huge value for a parent. They would probably go like worth every penny, right? Worth every penny.
And that's exactly kind of what we're juggling right now with our client. We're working with, I don't know if you've heard yet already, but we're working with the Furman Hill Institute to design like a leader, or we're advertising for an entrepreneurship camp, the Innovation Academy, and then that will move into the second year, which is supposed to be a CEO program where you then get to, you juggle those multiple hats in the entrepreneur side and then learn how to kind of maintain and expand your company within the CEO program that next year, while also coming back and working with those Innovation Academy who are, I'm launching my company. This is someone who's kind of learned those skills last year. Let me learn from them while also doing this myself. And there's just a lot of skills to move back and forth. But I mean, that's kind of tying together a lot of the questions and answers you've had, and if you could give us some more insight on.
I think a good model, if I were starting out cold, now that I have a better understanding what you're trying to do,
Mhm.
a good model to emulate or think through is a cooperative program at a university level. So like I was a Georgia Tech guy. I co-opted with Southern Company we were on the quarter system back then, but 8 quarters of school. So I went to school a quarter, worked a quarter, went to school a quarter.
In college?
In college. Yeah. But for almost 5 years, every quarter was a stepping stone towards something better. So they had a very structured program that you participated in. So even in high school, you could do it every summer for 4 years. But where you are at year 4 is very different than year 1. There's probably a leadership role, a board role in that program. But the stepping stone in co-oping is it pulls you into the company that you work for. You don't have to accept the offer, but by the end of the 4 years of college, they've invested 8 quarters, 2 years in you, and it basically is an automatic job when you graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And they do company rotations and stuff. So I think the principles of that have value in this sort of summer thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could get someone introduced in year 1 as a freshman, and the parents go like, "Hey, in 4 years, you're now in a leadership role in that program. You've been exposed to leaders in the community or an industry, and it sets you up for either academic success or internship success your freshman year in college." There is huge value in that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And the building that, or the program that we're working on building up, it also does have that effect, and same, like kind of like the same things that you guys were talking about before, like being able to give back. Like these second year participants, the people who were in the Innovation Academy before, they're able to come back for a second year, which is what we're working on, and they're able to give back to those people in the program as well by like helping out earlier in the day or just giving advice and like helping shape that program as well.
So for context, we sent 8 ID kids to Furman last summer, and this same class, the project management class, designed that camp out. They wanted to know, they said, we do this with college kids all the time. What does a high school kid want, need, what balance of intensive and fun? And they came up with this really intense program, and I was a little nervous sending 8 kids. I was like, they're going to come home exhausted. Like one day it was the legal aspect of it. One day it was like shooting this promotional film. And I was in Europe when they got home, and my phone just blew up. And they were just like, that was amazing. I want to go back. That was so cool. All 8 of them in the summer contacting their teacher. Like we were like, what is happening? And so to a person, 8 very different kids, different ages, but they were all ID. And Furman was like, we just want ID kids because the floor is here. We don't have to start with them here. They're like, how many of you have heard of a how might we statement? And they're all like, we do that for breakfast. Or, and so all 8 of these kids wanted to go back. They had never envisioned a second year program. And so that's when Cooperman, the head of it, started thinking, well, maybe some kids could come back and mentor these first year entrepreneurs in launching their business since they've already been through it.
I like the principle of that.
Yeah.
I think you want
The tiers.
from a revenue generation perspective, and I think from a parent involvement and kid involvement perspective, those succession steps, having a reason to come back a second or third time and progress over those stages. You only learn so much in 2 to 3 weeks.
That's right.
If you can get 8, 10, 12 weeks out of them over 3 years, and get that revenue stream recurring, I think goes a long way to sustaining the program versus just a once and done.
Yeah, and I think that's what you shoot for at least 3 years. I mean, maybe freshman year doesn't make the most sense, but boy, the next year, and your final summer there is your swan song. You're doing whatever, or you're the ones that are leading the whole thing at that point. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like kind of a gateway towards another opportunity after high school, kind of an ROI on financial investment from Furman, and then also just learning opportunities as a student.
Yeah, I think it's great on your college resume.
For sure.
Yes, right. So that's a takeaway. Like you want something that you can show, they can brag points. Did this extra. One thing that came up yesterday, we did a lot of 6 focus groups yesterday. One of the things that came up is it's called Innovation Academy, which is very similar to Innovation Diploma, but the programs are completely different. And I think a lot of people got hung up on that name and the word camp because it's so different than a camp, And last year we talked about an intensive. or something like that. Are there any words that would be more compelling for a program, an entrepreneurship program like that? Is there any
immersive, like something
immersive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think would kind of distinguish between just.
That's a good descriptor for what they went through, I think, too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the word is. If you would have asked me last night, I would have come up with something.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I would throw out camp.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think camp is a
Yeah.
misnomer.
Yeah.
Because I know where John is when we started this conversation. We started talking about camp and our camp experience. That put me into a
I
swing lane.
agree.
I was in the
what we're
talking
woods.
now is very
Yeah.
different than what I thought when we started out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's right.
I do think it's important to set the expectations because there's a ton of accelerators and incubators with a lot of content, a lot of curriculum and structure with the intention of literally creating a business. It's interesting as I'm thinking through this of, is it really teaching the skills needed to be more successful at that point in your life? Or is it the expectation that they would actually be pursuing the launch of a business and being able to differentiate those two? Because
Yep, that's a really interesting point. We first partnered with them, and you guys may not even have this context. We first partnered with them, they told us their vision, and Jalen Hagens is a rising senior, and he was my intern at this time, and he was on the call with me, and he kept saying, why can't they launch it? Why can't it be real? Let's launch it. And the Furman people were like, is that? And we're like, yes. Idea is real. Like, we work with real companies, we do real work, it's not simulated.
right.
And I think if anything else would feel like it fell short. And they were like, that's amazing, because that's what we do as college kids.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer for them. So the kids all came back saying, we want to keep working on this, we're going to launch this. They worked in pairs. So there were 4 companies that came out of that, and 4 really strong ideas. Another thing that this camp offers that I think is really strong is they meet 4 times over 4 weeks before the camp and kind of help them come ready. It came up yesterday when we were talking about what would an after program look like that KB Valley in that thing. Like, would it feel even like a better value if you met with your mentor as the year went on?
I think that's huge. Yeah. In fact, that was one of the things that we're looking at Georgia Tech on one of the programs. Is it's one-on-one professor time.
Oh, cool.
And that's it's a game changer.
Yeah.
If I'm Furman, I think I'd want to do something like that because I think some of the draw is to expose them to the school, such that they apply. Oh,
Right.
You've been through this program. Here's the next level for you. As a student here from.
We went to we took a couple of students from each group. Next year I want to bring all of them, but we went to their pitch competition, which is very much a Shark Tank, full like smoke machine, lights, bells and whistles. And that is one of the things they do really well is that thing. So the kids we took up there were like, I had no idea. This is so cool. Like, this place is beautiful. All those things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was one of the kids who went up to there, and it was for like I think almost 8 hours. It was pretty long, but it was definitely worth it for the experience because like we were also kind of like, I didn't go to the camp last year, but we were able to have that opportunity of kind of like getting that a little taste of that experience because we had like some of the teachers or like professors who work there coming up to us being like, oh, so are you looking at any colleges? Like, I know that you're working with us. Like, so it's also like being able to have a step in like what you were kind of talking about before, like being able to like open the door to opportunities and like having those professors like looking at us being like, oh, these kids are so talented, they can do all this for us, like why shouldn't we let them into our school?
Or how do we get them into our school?
That's right. It was like a mutual admiration. They really admire what we're doing here, and we really admire what they're doing there as well. And they match our energy, which is crazy. We've never found anyone that matched our energy before. You guys have about 2 minutes.
Okay.
If you want to wrap up or ask any final, you've gotten a ton of great insights. I hope y'all realize this has been great.
I had one final I didn't want to skip over, but you, Mr. Rankin, you had said how, like, you had brought up the value of having a different group and entering a space with different people. And now that you're hearing about how it was just innovation diploma students who all know each other.
It's
How
a
does
cross
that?
grade, so there were 2 freshmen, 4 sophomores, 2 juniors, and a senior,
Yeah.
which was interesting to me.
But there's still that
Yeah,
comfortability.
right.
Do you think that takes away from that aspect you were talking about earlier?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then it would just gravitate toward the hard skill development. And if you look at development as a full package, I think that discomfort in networking.
Well, good morning, Mustangs. It looks like someone's already got a head start.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
And I think that being in an uncomfortable space and then getting comfortable, that's where that
You're a
confidence comes
freshman
from.
or a senior.
The trade-off
Make
is
your
that
way to the learning
they got to
center
keep
and also
working
sign
on
the
their
ceremony and want you to partake in. But if you're a
I think in
sophomore
this
or a
aspect,
junior,
I
you're gonna be in
love
the
the
black box
idea
here
of
and get some really
sophomores,
information.
juniors, seniors all working together on a
Yeah.
common goal or
So
multiple
if you're a
goals.
freshman or a senior, head to the learning
I
stairs,
think
sophomore, junior,
it's
head to the
this,
black
this
box.
necessarily
It's
would
gonna be
be
an
your
awesome day,
networking,
Mustangs.
but
Let's
I
just
think
get
it's a
started.
great group for this, what you guys are pitching.
Awesome job, students. Awesome
Thank
job,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
I
coming
can
out
take
on
y'all's
Friday
paper.
morning.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Guys, good job.
Thank you.
Parents.